Have you ever looked at your grocery receipt and wonder, how did I spend this much on food this week? Whether you're single, married, or feeding a family of four, food costs are sneaky. But here's the thing, there's a realistic way to figure out how much you should be spending. In this episode, we are digging into how much food costs you each month based on your household size and spending style, and we'll compare eating out versus eating in and break down the USDA's 2025 food spending guidelines to give you a real world way to cut your grocery bill without starving your social life or your stomach for that matter. So let's jump into how to manage food costs in your home. Let's go.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror. Where future success is reflected in our knowledge of fixing the one thing we can control, ourselves.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror, and thanks for joining me today as we continue to work to improve the one thing that we can control, ourselves. Here at the Financial Mirror, it is not about the numbers and spreadsheets alone, but about transforming and educating you on money so that you can make smarter financial decisions. If this is the first time you're joining in, don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube to be notified of all the new episodes as they release. If you're listening to this on Rumble, don't forget to follow the channel and like the video. And on any podcast platform of your choice, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. So, food. It has been a hot topic. We just came off of the great inflation of egg prices, and all I heard about was eggs. And now we are getting to the point where all we're hearing about is inflation and economy crisis and tariffs and all these things. And it made me just realize that I've never really done an episode on how much or how little people should be putting into food into their life. Now, here's the thing that I really like to make sure that I talk about up front. Food is a necessity for you to live. That is correct. Food and water are necessities for you to live. Now, the quality and quantity of food that you put in your body is debatable, but food is a necessity for you to live. So what I want to talk about today is how much should you be spending on that necessity? Because food spending is probably the one item that I see eat into clients' budgets, and also is probably the one that can most easily be cut. So if you look at your budget and you're spending, 30% of your income on food, you could more than likely, and this is personal finance, right? So finance is very personal, but you could probably cut 30% down fairly easily. Now, to what? Up to you, right? There's lifestyle changes in there that have to happen, but more importantly, there's always an opportunity to cut food costs. It's probably one of the easiest budget items to cut. But with food prices kind of being so volatile right now, it may be leaving you questioning, am I spending too much? Is it time that I cut? And sometimes it's a little late for people to catch that. But food prices have been volatile. In 2022, we saw an 11.4 spike in food cost. 2024 and 2025, prices rose again, another like 2%. Restaurant prices rose like 4% in the last year. And I'm going to pull these up in a second. I'm kind of going off the top of my head of what I remember. But, grocery store prices are rising. People are, really trying to understand, where do I go next, right? Where do I go next? But I wanted to show you this, and I think it's fairly interesting. So this is directly off of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. But when you go into the Consumer Price Index or the CPI information, they talk about food. And this is the little blue section right here. It shows you that this is over the last month. Let's do this. So in the last month, food has risen by 3%, right? So 12 month percentage change as of the most recent month. So March being the most recent month. Um, 3% over the last 12 months. Food at home is up 2.4%. Food away from home is up 3.8%. We can drill into the food at home and we can see meat, poultry, fish, and eggs had a very drastic 7.9%. However, fruits and vegetables are down, 0.7%. But this just shows you how much prices are increasing in that category. And just for giggles, we'll go back and we'll look at food away from the home. So full service meals and snacks up 4%. Food away from home as like a limited service, think of like fast food, up 3.4%. But you can see like that is a decent increase in cost. If we can go over here to the 12-month percent over the last 20 years, and you can see that if we do food at home and food away from home really spiked here recently, but has started to come down, and food at home spiked here recently around 2022 and has since then come down, right? So kind of this whole COVID era kind of cost of everything was going up, but has since started to correct and come back down. So you can see that costs are rising. They are continuing to rise over time, kind of, peaks and valleys as we see with everything else. But the thing is I don't think people are very conscious of how much they spend in food. The first question that I ask people, and it's not meant to be a stumper, but it is how much do you spend on food? And I ask that for really two reasons. The first reason is not as evident, right? Is I just want to know, do you track your spending? And for most, they do not. The second is I want to hear how you answer it. And it's all about, well, I spend about this much, right? And normally speaking, when I hear that, and we're going to go into kind of these budget guidelines by household types, when I hear that, I have this like predetermined like number of what, whether they're single or a family of 4 or just a married couple. Like I have an idea of how much the average person of that family, of that household type spends. So it kind of gives me a gauge on, do they really know, right? Because if you're like, yeah, I spend $200 a month, but you're married with a family of 4, how are you doing that? Please enlighten us, right? So that's where I kind of get a little hesitant. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The biggest thing that I wanted to go over is I want us to stop winging this. So I want to give you some very clear guidelines. And these are from the USDA by household type. And these are just guidelines, but I think that they are very much useful for people to kind of gauge how much they should be spending. So let's first start off with a single adult. Now, single adult, it could range from fresh out of high school all the way up to widow, right? It could, in 60, 70-year-old, right? Largest range, newly divorced, like all of these things with no kids, right? All of these things could make you a single adult. So this probably has a very wide range of incomes as well. So let's keep that in mind as we're going through this. Now, I'm breaking all of these down into like a thrifty, like a moderate, and then a very conservative plan for planning wise for you to plan on spending. Now, for single adult, kind of that thrifty range, meaning you're really trying to cut corners, but it's doable, is about $300 to $350, right? $300 to $350. I think the exact number is like $297 to $372, right? That's kind of the going rate for based off percentages. That's for being very thrifty. Moderate, $386 to $458 a month. And then a more conservative plan to say, you know what, I want to give myself some wiggle room here, around $493 to $558. So if you're spending more than $558 as a single adult in a month, you're outside of even the largest margin of error right there for a single adult, right? So be aware of that. Be aware of that. That is, you are spending more than you have to on food. Like there's people that are getting by for significantly less, right? So that's my single adults. Now, for the married couples, thrifty is around $614 a month. That moderate is about $774 a month. And that more conservative planning number is about $963 a month. So how I recommend you kind of go through this as a married couple is to probably start off with something that you both feel is comfortable and scale your way back, right? And this could apply to all, but as a single adult, I mean, let's be honest. If you want to cut, you can cut. Like it only affects you. When you get into these other categories like married couples and families and all that kind of good jazz, you're affecting someone else as well. So you need to get everyone on board for that. So married couples start at, $963 if you can do it, and move your way back and get as close to that 614, that thrifty number as you can. That's a good starting point. For family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids, kind of ages 6 to 11 ish, kind of getting too much over 11. You're starting to get closer to adult category, and the intake, man, for a teenager just really goes up. So that thrifty is about $996, so sitting just under $1,000. For a family of 4, that moderate's about $1,300, and that more conservative planning is about $1,600. So remember, these are just averages. These are guidelines for balanced home cooked nutrition, maybe a little eating out here and there. But the idea here is that this is for your food, right? This is for your food. Now, what you're spending on takeout is probably what's driving your number up. If you're well over these numbers, it's what you're spending on takeout that's probably driving this up, right? We saw it. Eating out costs far more per meal and rarely includes leftovers, depending on the restaurant, right? But grocery store food is, multiple meals, ingredients, extremely low cost per meal. Eating out costs far more per meal, and it is one of those things that people enjoy doing, whether it be for social reasons, taste. All these things are reasons people eat out. Convenience, probably the biggest convenience. All of these are reasons people eat out. But Americans are now spending more eating out, 5.9% of income, than at the grocery store, which is about 5.3%. So if you're averaging around $10 a meal at a restaurant or fast food, and you're averaging about $1.50 a meal, maybe for, a grocery store purchased ingredients you made at home type of thing, you can see how you could quickly eat up your food budget by eating out, right? Restaurant food prices are inflating 4 times faster than grocery store food, right? 4 times faster. And we saw some of that in the numbers that we saw. So if you're looking to cut food costs, start with where you're spending more and getting less. And that would be my eating away from home, right? Now, I am not sitting here telling you that you should never eat out. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if cutting cost is your priority, go to where you can cut cost, where you're spending more and getting less, right? Like that's the best spot to start, because if you're spending $1.50 per meal and you're getting, a $10 meal for eating out, you're looking at about 6 meals per one 6 meals at home per one that you eat out, right? Big difference. So I tell you, that is where your real value in cutting is, right? So what are some reasons that people end up eating out more? And how can you stop with the overspending traps that come with eating out. Now, here's just a couple things that you can do. First thing you can do is plan meals, right? Planning meals allows you to be thoughtful about your week. If you've got a busy week, make easier meals. If you've got a busy week and you don't plan your meals, guess what? Everything is an inconvenience, right? You didn't plan your meals. Every single meal type is an inconvenience. If you would have planned and said, hey, I'm going to have this on this day because I know for a fact I'm not going to get home till late, you're less likely to be impulsive to say, you know what, I'm just going to stop and get something on the way home because it's quick and I just want to get home and rest. Like, this probably sounds just like you. I know. So that's kind of the first thing, is plan your meals, and it will prevent, or at least reduce, the amount of times that you go and do the convenience impulsive purchasing. Second thing that I would do is think about the unnecessary thought process around buying name brand stuff, right? Generic stuff is normally around 70% cheaper. Same thing, double check ingredients, double check nutrition facts, all that kind of stuff. It's probably fairly equal, but just take a peek. And on some items, maybe brand name is the way to go. But on ones that you can cut to a generic item, like buying generic garlic powder versus the McCormick, not a bad idea. Okay. Not a bad idea. So look to reduce the amount of necessary spending on name brand, and that'll help you cut some costs. Another thing you can do is buy things in bulk, but don't buy things in bulk that are going bad before you use them. If you're consistently throwing out half of what you bought, you're not saving money. All those trips to Costco is not saving you money if you're throwing out half of it when it goes bad, right? Not saving you money. Another thing you can do is stop shopping while you're hungry. People spend more when they shop when they're hungry. And if you are going to eat out, go pick it up. Don't order delivery. Your extra fees, tips, inflated menu prices, all of those things come with ordering delivery, right? Somebody, the delivery person's got to get paid too. Go pick it up, save the money, and save the fees, tips, inflated menu prices. Like, you can literally walk in the store and pay a cheaper price than it shows on your little app. Okay. So just be aware of that. Be aware of that. So my ask is that people, if you're trying to get within those numbers that we went over earlier, first thing you can do is just make small gradual steps. And a tip for that is to switch one restaurant meal per week to a home cooked meal with leftovers, right? Just one. Start out with just one meal per week. So that's 4 meals total per month that you're going to eat at home versus the restaurant, right? So if you were going out to eat 3 times a week, drop it to 2, right? That will help you start to save money. It will help you start to save money. So what can you do? What can you do to set that monthly food budget? So we went over the items, we went over the numbers. The first place that I like to tell people to start is, you're not going to commit to this whole food budget item. So if you're single and you're trying to get down to the moderate range, which is that like $386 to $458 per month, you're not going to do that if you are right now spending $1,000, right? That's a total lifestyle shift. If you're going to try to get to that, ease your way down. So first and foremost, look at your last 2 to 3 months of food spending, that's grocery store and dining out, and figure out what that number is. If that number is 1,000, maybe just cut to 900 in the first month and ease your way down to, $500. But the key is to don't try to go cold turkey on this unless that's just something you're really good at, and most people are not. So that's kind of that first step, is first determine how much you're spending per month and look at the last 2 to 3 months to get an average and start there. The next thing that you need to do is compare that number with what those guidelines are and see how close to or how far you can go to cut as much of those food expenses as you can. The last thing that I would do is I would start to separate over time. Don't do this immediately. Please don't do this immediately. Track this all as food initially. But what I would eventually get to the point of is separate how you track your food from at home and away from home. Because you need to make sure that a majority of your money is being spent on food that is cheaper per meal, which is groceries 99% of the time. So make sure that more of your food budget is going to groceries than takeout, right? Going to groceries and takeout. That is my step-by-step process for how to get your food budget down into a reasonable amount and something that you can grow into, right? And that's what I would plan for, right? I would plan for that. And if you can start to accomplish that, do your little food audit, 2 to 3 months of spending, see what it's averaging. Start there, work your way down to those guidelines and somewhere in the guidelines. And then step 3 is to separate tracking just as one macro food category, track it as at home and away from home so that a majority of your food money is going toward at home, like grocery store, like ingredients that you must cook, right? Like that's the goal. That's the goal. But all of that is ways that you can start to track and cut your food budget. Now that just gives you the cost, but what are some ways, and I went over a few earlier, but some other ways that you can start to reduce costs for groceries is make sure that you're using what's in your fridge. So take a moment to look through your fridge and see what can I make meals out of that I already have that I don't need to go and buy at the grocery store. Create a shopping routine, same day, same store, gets you in the habit of going there, less temptation to do those sporadic purchases. Know when items are going on sale and make plans around that. I've talked about couponing before, and there's a lot of people that love it. Some people just enjoy doing it. I don't know if it's worth it if you're buying things you don't need, like just stockpiling things. But if you're planning meals around coupons, maybe go for it. Maybe it's a way to save a little money. But the biggest thing that I can tell people to do is to not do those like temptation buys, not to be sporadic and impulsive when you walk in the grocery store, but instead have a plan before you go shop, walk in there, buy what you need and move on. That's just, the smartest food budget isn't the smallest, it's the intentional ones, right? If you're intentional about going to the grocery store, you will spend less. You will. So hopefully you got something out of this. Those guidelines are great places to look at and say, am I spending too much on my food? And if you are, begin to cut that, because you don't need to starve your joy or your stomach to save money. You just need to make a plan that matches your life. And if you're slightly outside of some of those guidelines, but it's for some other reason, like medical reason or something like that, like you just have to realize that that's your life, right? That's your life, and you're going to have to cut somewhere else. If someone else had some other costs that they needed, they'd have to cut too, right? But if there's certain things that you need, I would tell you, just make sure that you're being intentional about how much you're spending on food. It is the one item that people spend so much money on, and it is also the one item in a budget that you have so much control over. So hopefully you got something out of this. Track your food spending, aim for some realistic budget amounts, and shift more meals into the home if your budget's tight. You will begin to see a difference. So hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully this will be a good takeaway for you to just up your budget, down your budget, update your budget, start to budget, all of those things, and get on track with your spending. So till next week, continue improving the one thing you can control, yourself. Peace.
Well, that wraps up today's Financial Mirror. Join us next week as we continue to work on ourselves, change our mentality, and to commit to achieving the success we always envisioned. Regardless of your platform, help us grow as a community. Please like, subscribe, and share with the people in your lives.